he's done 50,000 crowds.
Yeah, he's done very well for himself.
Yes, he has.
Good for him. And
He
with the
inspires.
Equinox and Oxygen and all these albums.
He has inspired hundreds and hundreds of musicians. I'm sure he inspired me. I mean, the first time I heard his music, I was completely captivated. It was just wonderful stuff. Yeah.
What about Tangerine Dream? You remember the first album or the first concert?
Yeah, the first album I heard from them was Underwater Sunlight. And I heard it during a rock climbing trip in the desert in West Texas. And this guy had a little Walkman stereo with two little speakers, so it was crappy audio, but we listened to Tangerine Dream for 3 days while climbing desert rock faces. And that was it was a magical experience for me, and I'll never forget it. And that album is very special to me because of that, because it always reminds me of those days. But after I heard Underwater Sunlight, I just started, there weren't a lot of places where you could buy their music. I'd go into the music store. They just didn't have it. This was back in the day of cassettes. This is way before the internet or anything like that. So Tangerine Dream, all of these, that type of music, Steve Roach, it was hard to get their music. Most of Steve Roach's stuff I had to buy direct from him. It was the only place I could get it.
Yeah. No, but nowadays where I live, believe it or not, the record store, and I think, right, so record used to be very big, then it went down, CD came along, but nowadays people are buying a lot of record. I mean, I do. I mean, I like to have things, right? I don't like digital that much. And every weekend I go and buy music to a particular store, and they do very well. CDs still people are buying. And believe it or not, they're selling tapes now.
I know.
Yeah,
it's unreal. I have no idea why they would sell something like a cassette, which is so lo-fi. But albums, LPs, vinyl records have made a huge resurgence. David Helpling, he's on the Spotted Peccary label. He just released his new album back in April, and he released on vinyl. He's got a double vinyl album. It's like, that's beautiful.
I interviewed him a couple of weeks ago. He's a very nice person too. I interviewed him a couple of weeks.
Okay, very good.
He's a very good person too.
Oh, I love him. I love him to death. Off camera, I will tell you some things.
That album took him I think the album was called In, if I remember correctly. It took him 3-4 years. Yeah. And I pinged him during the interview, man, why it takes so long? Like you, it wasn't perfect, it wasn't ready. I want to work in this piece a little bit, that piece a little bit, something that perhaps could have taken
that man is a perfectionist.
For me, but for the artist, it took 3 years. He wasn't ready. He wasn't ready.
David is a perfectionist.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and it shows in his work. His work is extraordinary. I've been a fan of his. Let's see, when he was working with John Jenkins, they made an album called Treasure. Yeah. And just absolutely just astonishing beauty. That music, and I just fell in love with it, and I've been a fan ever since. He approached me when I released my last album with Spotted Peccary. Emerald Waters was the name of my last album, and he called me up. He looked me up and he called me and said, "Hey, I just want to let you know I really like your work." And I was blown away, because here's one of the men that I idolize. I love his music. He calls me up, and we had a nice long conversation about both of our work. And he's a wonderful person. He's a good guy.
Have you ever or have any kind of movie person or film director approach you to do soundtrack work? Because most of the people that do kind of soundscape, new age type of stuff, or electronic music, they end up like Tangerine Dream, right? They end up doing 60 soundtrack or something.
Yeah, they've done a lot of stuff. I have been approached by. I was approached by two different. One was a documentary maker, and another one was he was a film student working on something, and but neither one of them could afford me. I didn't want to do the work for free. I wasn't going to do it for anything for free, and they just weren't willing to make it interesting enough for me to get on board and to do the kind of work. They had a very tight schedule. They needed it soon. It was a large body of work that they were going to need. I wasn't in a position to deliver it as fast as they wanted, and they weren't willing to pay me anything really. And so I turned it down. I haven't had any serious offers in the last year or so. That kind of work interests me. I'd love to do a soundtrack to either a film or a documentary or something of that nature. It does appeal to me. That sort of project absolutely appeals to me. But I have no experience in it. I think I could figure it out, and deliver what they need. But that opportunity has not presented itself yet to me in a way that I have wanted to commit to it yet. So maybe someday.
Yeah, that field is complicated because so many people that go to electronic music to do film score, and like everyone in the world want to be like an Ennio Morricone or John Williams.
God. You mentioned Ennio Morricone. That's actually probably my favorite composer in film. Him and Hans Zimmer are my two favorites for sure. Yeah. Morricone, what a genius that man.
Oh, that guy was way ahead of his time. Like Klaus Schulze. Klaus Schulze was
same thing.
Yeah, we're way ahead of the time.
Yep. A lot of respect for him. It was sad to hear of his passing when he died. Yeah, we've lost a lot of the greats in the last few years. That's for sure. Yeah.
I don't know if you like Popol Vuh.
Who?
Popol Vuh.
I've heard of them. I'm not familiar with their work.
I will send you some links.
Okay, please do.
I'm going to be interviewing them. But they're very good. I mean, a lot of people that like Tangerine Dreams, or they knew who Klaus Schulze was, or Peter Baumann, or Michael Koenig, or Manuel Goshen will like probably. I would send you some links, man. I listened to some of your stuff last night on Spotify, and I want to bring some, tracks. Feel free to elaborate on them if you remember. If not, that's okay. From the album called A Distant Light, I like Miss.
That was my first album.
I really like that piece, man.
Thank you.
Really, feel free to elaborate how the album came together, how difficult was to.
So, in 2007, I finally decided to do whatever it took to create an album. And so I converted a room in my home into a studio of sorts, set up my keyboards, and got a computer that I could record with, and didn't have any idea how I was going to do it, who I was going to get to help me do the mix or the mastering or anything like that. But so for 3 years, from 2007 to 2010, I just kept working diligently. Every chance I got, I was working on this music, trying to produce something worthy of sharing. And I did. And I was in 2008, I went to a Steve Roach concert in Flagstaff. And Steve and I had become, but I did some artwork on 2 of his albums. And so by that time we had become friends. And I asked him, I was telling him that I was doing this album, and he said, "Hey, when you get done, send me the music. If I feel a connection with it, I'll be glad to do the mastering for you." And I was like, "Oh, great. Okay. Well, that's great." So I finished the music. I sent it to him. He liked it. He did the mastering on my first album. And I think that went a long way in sort of lending credence or making people notice my work, because it had Steve Roach's name attached to it. I'm not going to lie. I think that helped a lot, having that relationship and having him associated with that work most assuredly helped in getting my name out there. And so I was just so happy. I'd been listening to we have a radio station here, in a radio program here in the United States called Hearts of Space, and they've been around for a very long time. They're very well known, and they play really high quality music. And I remember thinking, if I can ever create an album where my music ends up on their show, I will know that I have succeeded, that I've made
That's
it.
right.
You know,
Yeah.
I've lived the dream. And first album, they played 2 songs from my first album on their show, and I think I broke down in tears when they sent me the email and said, "Hey, we'll be featuring your work on this show." You know, I'm just thrilled to death, and that just was so rewarding and inspiring for me to continue doing this, because at that point I knew that, hey, I know how to make music that people like as much as I like it. And I don't mean that it's so easy to sound egotistical about that, but every musician knows that they have to love the music they're making, or it's just not worth it. So I've always tried to do that. And Hearts of Space have played music from every single one of my albums except my second one. And I don't know why they didn't play any from the second one, because it's one of my personal favorites, but it doesn't matter. It got.
That's a very good, well-known program, and a lot of musicians, I mean, all the big names like yourself and Steve Roach and whatever, they have been broadcast at that particular radio station. So
yeah.
It's a well-known program.
It's always such a great honor. I think my 6th album, A Prayer to the Energy, I think I was on 4 or 5 of their programs that year, 2017. And so just the greatest honor. And listen, I don't take any of this lightly. Being on your show is a great honor, just as much, because anyone who comes to me and wants to talk to me about my work and share my work with the world, how can you not be honored by that? That's the greatest thing. So I'm humbled and just as grateful as I could possibly be that you and others come to me to talk to me about my music. Thank
you very much, man. When I started, I thought, man, if I can do 10 interviews, I will be happy. And I was very conscious about my accent because I wasn't born in the United States, or people wouldn't understand my question. I knew that I wanted to do something different. I was a point after hit. More than interview, it was a conversation between two and you, two human beings about music, and 150 and still going, man. So,
right. Well, I live in Texas, so I'm around a lot of my friends are Hispanic, so I have gotten used to the accent. I can understand pretty much everything at this point. But so yeah, I have no problem understanding you. So that's
good for you, crazy. Let's talk about your latest project. It's Emerald Waters. Yeah, I really like the track. I think the first one, Hydroelectric. But feel free to elaborate in the whole album. How long did it take? How they create the process? How long did it take to put it together?
So Hydroelectric actually started much earlier. It was a song that I'd started probably in 2018 or so, and it was one of those songs that really didn't fit into any other project, and so I didn't have a home for it. And it wasn't until I started on Emerald Waters that the song didn't even have a name, but it was a song that had so much energy. It's a really energetic song, and so I thought that would be a really great way to open an album. And I managed to talk Howard into making it track 1, and I did a considerable amount of work on that song to really polish it, make it really clean, and have a lot of high energy. I always try to start my albums with a real attention grabber, and that song, That song took a long time to make. It started out early, and I changed things constantly on it until I got it to where I wanted it. But that song has a lot of unique sounds in it that I really like, and that aren't heard anywhere else on any of my other material. So it's kind of unique in that respect. I really like that song. It's one of my favorites that I've done. I feel like it was a successful piece. I never get tired of listening to it, and that energy I just tried to carry out through the rest of the album. Now some of the other songs are a little more subtle, of course, but all of it had to be tied to this the element of water and the movement of water and the colors of the water. And that the name hydroelectric, it just has this name that's associated with energy, obviously, that I just thought was perfect for that song, and it didn't come until the last minute that I named it that. But
it's a very good album. I really like
well,
it.
thank you
I
very
listened to
much.
the whole album last night when I was putting question for you and for the interview, and it's a very good album, man.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah.
What are you working nowadays?
I'm sorry?
What are you working nowadays? You begin working something new, or?
Oh yeah. So for my third album with Spotted Peccary, I've got about 50 minutes of music fleshed out. Some of it's very close to being completely finished, and others is just kind of the foundation. So there's a lot going on right now. Yeah, I've got a lot of music that I'm working on. What I tend to do is work on, and it's the same way with my paintings. I work on multiple projects at once. I never just work on one song, finish it, go to the next song. I've always got, 7 or 8 songs in the works at one time. So I'm constantly bouncing back and forth on that. And sometimes I'll work 4 or 5 hours a day for 5 days straight. And then I'll take 5 days off just because the ideas aren't coming. I have to be very careful not to push anything too hard. The ideas have to come to me naturally. And so what is very helpful for me is to bounce back and forth between art and music, because taking a break from the music and working on art allows the creative batteries to recharge. I don't like to force anything, so it's not uncommon for me to step back from the music for days, even weeks at a time, to let ideas come back, to come naturally. And sometimes I'll get an idea, I'll be watching TV or listening to another song on the radio or something, and then get this spark and come straight to the studio and immediately start getting that idea captured, but it has to, I don't like to try to force it, because that's how I burn out. And so I have my own kind of ways of dealing with burnout, so that it doesn't happen, so that I stay inspired and can finish a project. Like I said, for instance, Prayer to the Energy, I had over 80 song ideas on that project. Over 2 years that I worked on that. That was the hardest album I've ever made. And I did get burned out. And so I stepped away from music for a year after I made that album, because I had to get away from it. But now I know how to deal with it. I know how to get re-inspired and stay inspired, but it's not uncommon for me to step back from it for a few days at a time.
I got you to walk it. Know when it's time to walk away, do something else, go to the painting, photography, spend time with the family, whatever, and then all of a sudden you're doing something different, and
there
an idea get together, and you rush to the studio, or with the phone, writing mental notes or whatever. So,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think it takes to survive in this music business, because it's cutthroat business. It's very
Well,
difficult to make it. How
it
many people
it
would make it?
is cutthroat. Everybody seems to have their own sort of approach to it. I don't think there's a formula that
Yeah,
means success. Um, I will say this: the only way that you can be successful at it is to do the very best work you can possibly do, to never ever compromise and to never give up. This takes uh, a degree of commitment that isn't necessarily seen in other jobs. The art world is the same way. You have to do your very best work. The software industry, I'm sure you know this. You have to be dedicated to doing your very best work. And that's the basis for being successful. That doesn't ensure your success by any means. Um, that's kind of a roll of the dice, I think. I just, especially in music, you don't know what people are going to like, but they're not going to like your worst work. That's for sure. So you always have to do your very best. Um, I don't know how to be successful in this industry. I just don't. I'm not there yet. And let's talk about, or if you're talking about monetary success, I haven't got that figured out. My fan base is pretty large. I mean, I've got a lot of people that like to listen to my music, but
yeah.
excuse me.
It's okay. And then you are in the record, the right record label to that. It takes time, but it's getting there. If you graph on the X axis and Y axis, the
Right.
number of people that will listen to how many CDs
Yeah.
we're selling and over time, right?
Right. So Spotify is a great tool for doing that. It allows you to see your success over year over year, and clearly I'm getting better. I'm growing. The number of people who listen to my music it's getting better every year for sure, and I love seeing that progress. So I think over time, in another another 10 years, I'll be doing pretty good, I think. No, I don't know if it'll take that long, but if you're going to be successful at this stuff, you have to just not give up. You just have to keep doing it, doing the best work that you can. I think I will reach a point when I'm doing quite well. It just what matters is the larger audience. You have to have more listeners, more people listening and demanding your music and asking for it, and so that takes time, but you can't sit around and wait for it to happen. You have to proactively, push that and make it happen. Do the best work you can. One of the smartest things I did was to get with Spotted Peccary. And in that first year, my audience doubled, and now I'm heard in, let's see, the last time I looked at Spotify, my music was heard in 109 countries.
That's impressive, man.
That's crazy. I would have never been able to do that on my own. I don't think it's just so hard. It takes so much work to self-promote. It's ridiculous the amount of. I mean, I'd finish an album, and a musician finds out that making the music is the easy part. The hard part's selling it. To getting it in people's ears. And I was sending out 60, 70 albums to all these different places around the world, everywhere I could find. And it didn't hold a candle to the connections that Spotted Peccary had. They're sending my music to 200-300 places, and so my audience got very big very quickly after I joined with them. And I think it's continuing to grow. They tell me that my sales are good, but I don't know. I don't get to see numbers. So it's unfortunate, but I get it. That's the way the labels work.
But the record label, they're doing very well. They started with, a dozen or
Well,
two artists, and now they're going and
oh yeah, I think.
expanding, and people like that type of music, your
Oh
music,
yeah,
other people.
yeah. And that's why I started with them. Hopefully, the idea was to start at the top and work my way down. And I knew that Spotted Peccary was successful. They'd been around 30 some odd years. They had been able to stay alive through every single economic downturn in this country since whatever 88 when they started. I don't remember when they started. I think it was late 80s, but they survived all of that. And there were tons of record labels that came and went.
Yeah.
And they survived.
Hopefully, I will have the opportunity to interview the owners, because I want to pick.
You should.
I want to look at the strategy. What they were successful. Why this artist worked, why that artist didn't work.
I would love to hear that interview.
Yeah, the people are going to be candid to me, so I will.
Sure. Yeah.
I will poke the tiger, so to speak.
Yeah.
I want to know the answer to that.
Yeah.
Why Bad Camp? Is successful.
Yeah.
There's a strong strategy behind it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's
and so they've done very well over the years, and I'm honored to be on their label because I'm with some of the best names in the business.
Absolutely.
And to be among those is to me a great honor.
Absolutely.
Very, very happy to be with them. They've been very good to me so far, so I'm happy.
Good for you, man. Looking back in your musical career, what moment are special to you? Any regret about things you would perhaps have done differently, or?
That's a good question. I think one of the highlights of my musical career have been those moments when I ended up on being on Hearts of Space, being interviewed by people such as yourself that have taken any time. Like I remember the first time someone asked me to autograph an album for him. I was like, what? You want my autograph? That's kind of a shocker. And now I do it all the time. People ask for them all the time. So it's that is very rewarding. I don't guess I really have any regrets at all. I don't know what I would have done differently because I've been happy with the way I've done just about everything. Okay, so one thing I think I would have done differently is I would have approached Spotted Peccary much earlier. I would love to have been with them from day one. Yeah, because I think now I would be doing quite well with them. I had a conversation with David Helpling about this, and he said, "Look, just keep making albums with Spotted Peccary. You will be successful." And I believe that. So we'll see.
Good for you.
But not a lot of regrets. No.
What do you do for fun? No music related.
I love hiking and camping. Not so much at the moment because it's 100 degrees here. Like it's very, very hot in Texas right now. But in the winter, I love to go to state parks and go camping and hiking. I used to do quite a bit of snow skiing, kayaking, rock climbing, mountaineering. I'm almost 60 years old. The body doesn't respond the way it used to. So I'm a little more gentle in my approach to the mountains. But I love the mountains. I love to be in those spaces. Of course, art. I love to paint. It's therapeutic for me. I've done it all my life. I do some gardening and canning and that kind of thing. Cooking. I love to cook. I don't do as much of it as my wife would like me to do, but I do some cooking. I do enjoy it. I love making new recipes and that kind of thing. But yeah, I think if I could, I would spend more time in the mountains. What I like. Yeah, I've always had a love affair with Mother Nature, and a lot of that shows up in my art and my music. My last album is all about water and rivers and
the last question. Feel free to elaborate where the listener can buy your music. mention the record label, the Bandcamp, and your
Right.
Facebook
So
and whatever.
the two best places to find my music are Bandcamp, hollanholmes.bandcamp.com.
Yeah.
That's where I sell and previous. After that, I'm on the Spotted Peccary label, so spottedpeccarymusic.com. That's the other place that you can buy my most recent work. And of course, you can stream and download my music from all of the streams, iTunes, Spotify, you name it, it's there. Spotted Peccary has done a very good job of distributing my work to a lot of different outlets. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Good for you. Well, Hollan, it was very nice talking to you, man. Good luck to you going forward. Keep on producing great music like you have, and hopefully one day we'll, meet face to face.
I would love to cross paths with you someday. That would
get like
that
a
would be
beer
a great honor.
or a coffee, whatever you do, man. It was very nice
thank
to
you very
you.
much.
You're doing. Yeah, I'm happy that you haven't. It's so easy to give up. You try it. I'm not talented enough. I'm not a painter. I want to go to school. Whatever.
I've been through all of that.
You stick to it, and then eventually something good comes out.
Yep. You have to love what you're doing first.
You have to know what you're doing first.
And I do. So it's been a great honor to get to talk to you, and I appreciate your interest in my work.
Well, man. Have a great evening, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.